Quite the show. Christmas. The Christmas season, and that means two things really, doesn't it? The celebration of the birth of the Messiah and the opportunity for the secular world to make fun of those who believe in that birth and indeed of Jesus himself. The battle against Christmas is a reality, and it's part of the greater war against Christianity. The Da Vinci Code, television documentaries claiming to debunk Christ, best-selling books libeling the faith, and a concerted attempt to marginalize Christianity and abuse its followers. Yes, it does happen all the time. In response, we should establish a few basic facts about the Christian faith, because it really is too late to sit back and do nothing, you know. Now, Scripture itself requires us to always have a ready defense of the truth. One of the most significant points to make, actually, is that almost every discovery in biblical archaeology in recent years appears to prove the Bible right, correct, even to the point of surprising Christian and Jewish scholars. As for Jesus himself, Jewish records refer to Jesus of Nazareth, and did so even before Christians had written about him. One of the most important is Josephus, a Jewish general who abandoned his people and became a friend of the Romans. Now, Josephus mentions Jesus in his writings several times. It's almost certain that later writers revised his words to make them seem more pro-Christian, but it is the revisions and not the original statements that should be removed from the debate. Josephus knew of Jesus because, well, frankly, no commentator of the time could not know of him. The Roman biographer Suetonius also refers to Jesus and a riot across the Tiber by supporters and foes of Christianity. Pliny the Younger, governor of Asia Minor, speaks of Christ and Christians. Next come the ancient historian Tacitus. You've heard of him probably. He discusses the great fire in Rome, how Nero was probably responsible, and how the emperor placed blame on the Christians, he says, named after Christus, who was crucified, quote, by one of our governors, Pontius Pilate. Then there is the gospel evidence for Jesus. For years we've been told that it's unreliable, written long after the events occurred, and even by people other than Mark and Luke, John and Matthew. Not so, not so. Serious scholars now agree that the Gospels were completed well before 100 AD, obviously by men who were present during the life of Christ. In fact, no reliable biblical expert or scholar of ancient history doubts that Jesus lived, that he claimed to be the Messiah, and that many who knew him believed that claim. The idea that he was just a great moral teacher is, I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. He claimed to be the Son of God. If he wasn't, he was telling the most vile of lies, or he was just completely mad. Liars are not to be trusted, and the insane are not to be followed. We are not, of course, obliged to believe, but the generation of martyrs certainly did, didn't they? People die for the wrong reasons, but they assume them to be the right reasons. If their faith in any idea or any person can be broken, they are no longer willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. Yet, men and women who knew Jesus, lived with him, saw him die and saw him rise again, they then went to their deaths with a smile. Now, this is extraordinarily important because the followers of Christ were in chaos when they saw their leader crucified. It was the resurrection, an event he had promised, which caused them to believe once again, and for so many of them to die that martyr's death. There is no logical explanation for the martyrdom of those who followed Jesus other than they knew without doubt that he was the Messiah and that he had been raised from the dead. There were many of them, and they came from every section of society, the most learned and the least educated, the wealthiest and the poorest, the young and the old. And the martyrs are still dying. In the Middle East, Asia, Africa, they're persecuted and they're slaughtered. In Canada, they are mocked, silenced, shouted at, and in some cases prosecuted for their political and social views. But truth is still truth. Jesus is still Jesus, and Christmas is still Christmas. Snow, December, carols, trees, all lovely, but none essential. What is essential is the man himself who came to us as a baby. He was God. He is God. Have a wonderful and a blessed Christmas. I'm a little scared because there's a beautiful woman in combat fatigue sitting here. Her name is Faith Goldy. I like the costume, but I mean, you're not David Menzies. He would. Why the combat jacket?
We're at war right now. A physical, a spiritual war, and it's the war on Christmas, Michael. And I'm being very serious. I know there are a lot of viewers right now that are rolling their eyes. War on Christmas, come on. This itself is some myth that the folks at Sun News, Fox News have made up. No. What folks want you to do is to deny this is even existing, so that way you cannot fight against it. And I'll tell you right now, there is a real war against nativity scenes, Christmas plays that are now turned into anti-bullying plays.
I know, I read about that.
They want to take even trees, something that has nothing to do with the birth of Christ, outside of schools, of any sort of public space. But let's be very clear. The target is Christianity. The vehicle is Christmas. And the time for weak pastors, weak laity is over. Because this is why I'm decked out in my camouflage right now. It's a real war, Michael. And do not believe those, and forgive me, I don't want to call them idiots, but those folks that do not have an intelligent leg to stand on, that tell you that freedom of religion is freedom from religion. They clearly have zero understanding of history, of even the past 100 years, that the history of tyranny over the past 100 years have included the elimination, the eradication of Christianity. And then, you know, there are no human rights without religious freedom. There's no such thing. And if I can say, the reason why Christians are being persecuted in the Western world right now is because they are the only voice that is standing up against things like abortion, definition of marriage and pro-family values. And so, like I said, the target is Christianity, Christian beliefs, and the vehicle is this high holy season, which now they're trying to turn into a season for political correctness.
You know, there's a new movie, I haven't seen it yet, I will, a new Tarantino movie, because I do quite like his work. It's very violent, but I enjoy it. And it's about a slave fighting back against those people who enslaved people simply because of their color, they were black.
Right.
What he doesn't talk about apparently in the movie is that the vast majority, and in fact almost all of the leadership of the anti-slavery movement were Christians, evangelical Christians and Roman Catholics. Many of them were killed. They were martyred for this. They were beaten to death by mobs because of this. We forget all of that today. So many of the struggles, civil rights, Martin Luther King was a Christian, for goodness sake. So much of the work that was done to improve social progress, education, healthcare, Christians. Today, we marginalize because we can. Look, it doesn't matter that much if someone says happy holiday. It's annoying, though, when you read a tweet that says, I spit at people who say Merry Christmas. I've seen a few of those. We have the nativity scene that's paid for by the Knights of Columbus outside City Hall in Toronto. I think 12 years, I think it's been up. 11 of those 12 years, it has been smashed. Lots of money, but more than that, just the pain of it. We had a group of Dominicans who, there was a firebomb attack on their church just a few days ago. There have been 3 Catholic churches that have been firebombed and arson attacked in the past year. We read very little about it. It is much more vicious than some people think. It's not just not saying Christmas. It goes well beyond that. It's the last group you can really attack in so-called civilized society and still be given a slap on the back. Oh,
most certainly. And what I find most despicable about it is the fact that it's not just anti-Christian bias, it's anti-freedom. This is a religious freedom. And religious freedom, let's be very clear, is not to go down to your basement, to bow down on your knees and to pray whatever God you believe in. That's not religious freedom. Religious freedom is freedom to practice in public, to exercise, to erect hospitals and schools and churches in the name of your God. To build a little nativity scene, to draw attention to Jesus, who is the Christ, the Messiah, the reason for the season, if you choose to believe in him, which I know you and I do. And any person of faith, any person without faith who is pro-freedom should feel compelled to stand up for Christians at this time of the year in order to just, you know, it's about, you know, a Rasmussen poll came out recently. 76% of Americans want the Yuletide to be the focus, not Santa Claus, not jingle bells, not, you know, political correctness. 76%. That's the majority. But what's happened is that we're all, you know, sheep. And we allow ourselves to be pushed over by militant atheists, by militant, you know, politically correct folks, and it's politically, you know, uncommonsensical as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, you mentioned about the slavery and the leaders who were Christian. The thing is, Michael, we have a lot of leaders today that are Christian in name alone. But the thing is that, you know, you've got the Justin Trudeau's of the world, you know that he's going to be attending this one school, Catholic school. He's Mr. Pro-abortion himself. Other Christians aren't loud enough. Not even this bishop, God forgive me for calling out one of your ordained sons, but even the bishop himself is not calling him out for being, yes.
I can only think he was badly advised or even lied to, but he should come forward in all humility now and say,
yes,
I was wrong, because he defended Justin Trudeau, said he was a faithful Catholic. Justin Trudeau has opposed the church on all, not some, but all of the most important major moral issues the church stands for. And
that's exactly it. And we've allowed a watering down of not scripture, not of any sort of dogmas, at least not for the Catholic, Orthodox faiths. There is no watering down there. But the thing is, we are now we've been watered down in spirit in the public arena. The arena. A little shout out to your show.
Yes, no, I agree. And we had the ruling just yesterday, the Supreme Court ruling that really tried to accommodate Islam. And people have said, oh, it was balanced, it was nuanced. Well, I'm sorry, the fact that you tried to accommodate Islam, when time after time the Supreme Court, and Rosalie Abella, for example, and I know her views on Christianity and on Christian activists, when this court and other courts of a more junior level have said to Christians, do what you're told. When Christians have said, just let us know when our children are attending sex ed classes that are very radical, we're not telling you, you have no right to do what you're told. Again, this was not about defending the rights of the religious. It was about defending the rights of the Islamic. Christianity has been pushed to the fringes. It's not when people say to me, "Oh, that's just Bill O'Reilly." I've never watched Bill O'Reilly. I don't have Fox. I have it on the radio sometimes in the car, but I don't know. There's a reality that may be expressed in places like Fox and Sun. Well, the problem there is that in mainstream media, they won't listen to that reality. They're hiding away from it. Then they blame us because we will actually listen to what the street is saying.
Well, and that's just it. Like I said, 76%, but we're allowing this very loud minority to tell us what we're allowed to deck in our halls or not. There are good stories. I have to say, I covered Guelph, Ontario, and nativity scene was removed from a church there. Local pastors, local laity got together and said no. Even there were folks who were completely secular in nature that got together and said no. This is part of what we do here.
I was there for that. I was speaking to the Knights of Columbus group in Guelph. They'd had that nativity scene every year. Suddenly, there's no room for it. It's a big shopping mall. They said, well, hold on, there's lots of room. They did get together, and it's often, this is what happens. One irritating, Grinch-like anti-Christian says, no, there's no room. And we say nothing. Well, people said, I'm sorry, but I think there is room.
Right.
And it was changed.
That's exactly. And we have to remember, yes, we live in a secular nation. Yes, we have separation between church and state. But a secular nation is not one that is free from religion.
And we don't really even have that separation anyway. However, I think this is wonderful. Next time, dress as a sailor or an Air Force pilot.
Sounds good, Michael.
Whatever you want. Have a great Christmas.
You too.